Sports have been around for many years, but what isn't talked about is the stress and fear that each sport can cause an athlete. This is Athletes with Stress and Fear by Emma Forrester. This quote from Mohadi, an employee at the Department of Biohealth Engineer, describes the fear in athletes before a game or performance. This shows a voluminous issue because athletes should not be experiencing so much stress over games created to be an enjoyable activity. Sports are beginning to take over kids' lives at a very young age and cause them mental health issues that can cause them to not be able to move or think. Before moving forward, I would like to discuss what stress will be defined as during this presentation. The Mohadi definition is the most relevant to my topic, research paper, and slideshow. This quote also talks about what stress can do to the human body. All these are possible effects, are negative effects towards the brain and body. The stimulus source on Simone Biles was the spark of my whole research topic. Then, as I read more into the stimulus, I found the source on PTSD. Both of these articles discuss stress in mammals and how it affects mammals. In the Simone Biles article, Thompson, a main columnist, discusses how Simone Biles was under too much stress and pressure because of her performance. The article from Zenap also discusses stress, but in animals. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, which sets the tone for how these articles connect. The main question for my whole research argument was, do athletes experience stress and fear before a big performance? A big performance can be different for everyone. To some, it may just be a normal game, but to others, it can be something very substantial like the Olympics. Either way, the answer is yes, and all of my further research proves this. This quote from Simone Biles, a very successful Olympic athlete, demonstrates how she felt because of her performance. She had been through so much stress and that she lost trust and confidence in herself. It also took a lot of confidence to stand up and talk about this, as it is a very undiscussed topic. Most people hadn't even thought about what athletes go through. They just enjoy watching them perform. I surveyed 100 plus kids at a local North Carolina high school to get additional information. The results continue to attest to my thesis that athletes experience stress before a game. With 77.9% of athletes experiencing stress about losing their upcoming game before it even begins, shows that this is a very current and pressing issue. With similar results as the previous slide, this question continues to prove my thesis. This image is also from my survey with the same students surveyed. This high school is in a very sports-oriented community, which could cause the athletes to have more stress or pressure. It is also the only high school in this county, which puts all the spotlight on them. The main solution for this pressing issue is coping. Coping can be different for everyone. Some ways of coping may include listening to music, driving, sleeping, or eating. These have been proven to help reduce stress in athletes before a game. The only limitation is athletes or coaches will have to hold themselves accountable. This quote from Costana, a research director in Washington, D.C., shows how athletes facing stressful situations will gain coping strategies to help regain normalcy. Athletes cannot mentally function if they do not have any ways to normalize their emotions. Athletes are more likely to succeed in unusual situations if they can see it as a challenge instead of a burden. This is another way of coping for many people, as they picture a future situation as something positive instead of something negative. Additionally, a quote from Mohadi proves that when athletes practice these strategies, they perform better. This normalizes the unusual situations to help them succeed. Athletes who don't generally practice these strategies will fail and not be able to advance as quickly. Although stress can generally be bad within athletes or ineffective, it can be pushed aside. There are some positive upsides to stress within athletes, depending on the athlete's mentality and how bad they want what they are working for. The first example of someone who opposes my thesis is Ram Gopal, a doctor in counseling psychology. He states that if athletes are more focused, they'll perform better, which is true for some situations, but not for the majority of athletes. This being stated, stress is still a very negative thing in many people's cases. This statement given by Mussarat, a student at Air University, shows how athletes who work together as a team and ultimately have similar goals shall succeed together. But it also works the other way around. When one athlete is upset or has a negative mindset, they affect the team negatively. One athlete can change the whole team's perspective either positively or negatively. To conclude this presentation, I will recap all of the main topics covered. These points all show that athletes experience stress and fear because of performances. Firstly, I talked about how the PTSD and the Simone Biles articles connected to spark my thesis. Next, I discussed general quotes and my survey's results. Then, I reviewed the main solution and its limitations. And finally, I covered any opposing opinions and how my thesis remains to be true. Here are my citations, and thank you so much for listening.